Welcome to a special mailbag episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where I, Adam, am sitting down with one of our Patreon subscribers, Andri, who has generously become one of our Metallic Great Worm tier patrons. That means that he's able to sit down and record an episode with us, and he decided that today we're going to be breaking down the ideas for like a kingdom or a country. This is, I think, a sequel to the other episodes. Are we building off of the city that we built last time?
Yes,
Okay.
pretty much.
So we've got a little bit of a basis to start off from. For anybody that wants to go back and dig into that, we've actually done two episodes on it. One was building it, and then the other one was like naming things. Um, but now we're going to expand a little bit broader. But the first thing before we get started, I want to ask you a question. As a dungeon master,
Yeah.
what is the hardest part of campaign prep for you? Not session prep, but campaign prep.
My biggest weakness is probably tables and encounters.
Yeah.
But also it's also fleshing out town ideas and country ideas that I have. Like I get the skeleton and then I trail off and do something else. And that's a rinse and repeat in almost every campaign I have attempted to DM.
I have some general guidelines. I hope we'll be able to fix that second one in this. In this one, you and I should sit down and talk about random table at some point because
Yes,
I love
that would be
building. Yeah, so
that would be so much fun.
So yeah, we should sit down and do that because we are going to talk about random tables a little bit later in this episode, but just we're going to glance off them. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk for a second about kingdoms, countries, or I just call them realms until I know
Realms,
exactly
yeah.
what I'm dealing with, right? Because
That's a good name. That's a good word for it.
yeah, sometimes, especially when you're dealing with like elven kingdoms, we are talking fantasy, right? So when we're dealing
Yeah.
with like elven kingdoms or dwarven kingdoms, it's like the forest is the realm, but their king and like it's technically their kingdom, but there's not cities littered throughout
Yeah.
there, right? Or the for dwarves, it's under these mountains or this mountain range or this volcano, but like the forge and the city and the living spaces are here, the fortress is here, but what's the rest, right? So
Yeah.
I always like it when dwarves get angry that people are on their mountains. Like, well, you didn't put up a sign, bud. Like, people are allowed to traverse here. You've got under the mountain. What about the people on top of the mountain? So,
Yeah.
when it comes to designing realms, it's usually pretty difficult to design for when it comes to tabletop role playing games because it's easier when you've got a script or a story or something where you can just feed information forward. Now, I'm not saying writing is easy, that's not my claim here, but I'm saying it's a different kind of design when it comes to role playing games.
Yeah.
Because you've got a very clear geography or tone or experience that you want to express. But how do you get that out there without injecting exposition dumps while keeping it interesting and while keeping it varied so it's not just the same one note over and over again? And it's interesting because I look at Game of Thrones as a really good example of world building. They're in the Seven Kingdoms, but it's all ruled in Westeros as one king, but all the regions are
Yeah.
very different. All of the cities are very different, and yet we have spent so much time on the fucking roads with Arya and the Hound and whatnot. And you'd think that the outlaw with the little girl would be the same thing over and over and over again, but they hit random encounter after random encounter all the way through,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's engaging the whole time, right? So before we get into the nitty gritty bit, first things first, we have to decide on our genre, and then we have to decide on our tone, right? So by genre, I know we're going fantasy. We talked about building a kingdom where there are orcs. It neighbors an elf kingdom that, or we have a city rather. It's on the border of an elven kingdom, where they're just secretly run by a green dragon. There's a little bit of a war there, but we're fleshing out the rest of the kingdom.
Yeah.
What genre of fantasy are we in? Is it high fantasy? Is it gritty fantasy? Is it sword and sorcery, sword and board? Are we into intrigue and espionage or high adventure? Or is it comedic? Like
Yeah.
what kind of campaign is this going to be? Because that's going to determine kind of how we build the world around the city.
Yeah. I had thought high fantasy because that's what my I sat down or put my players in a group chat and asked, what do you guys want? And they said high fantasy, of course, with essence of comedy because we have to have fun.
Sure, of course. I'm always
But
I'm always
yeah,
curious when
it's
people
high
say high
fantasy.
fantasy to know what they actually think that means. because I
Yeah.
feel like that's the default answer because that's the phrase everybody recognizes, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why, like, most of these players, I think three of them have, well, one of them has never played, two of them have been in like 3 sessions, and the other two have just been with the same group forever.
Okay, so it's a big intro campaign. So
Yes, but
basic fantasy is the right.
yeah, but these two, to be fair, have been playing D&D longer than I have. So, but it's always with the same group. Granted, two different DMs at different times, but
Just total sidebar. Does that intimidate you? Having players that play longer than you?
no, no.
It doesn't intimidate me either. But when I talk to my table, because I DM, and then whenever I take a break, Dan steps in, and Megan
Yeah,
has done L5R for us, and I'm trying to encourage. I know Casey DMs, I know Dave DMs, I know Charlie has a little campaign he wants to run, and I keep telling people, guys, step up. Whenever I take a break, get your feet wet, like play,
yeah.
DM. And they always say, I would love to, but I don't want to DM for you or Dan. And it's an intimidation factor. And I'm like, I don't understand that. We are the most
Yeah.
forgiving, like having long time DMs at the table is just like having a backup referee, right? So
Yeah, my almost the group that I'm with now, or not the one I'm DMing, the one I play with, all of them have played for longer than I have, but I've also DM'd for them all. I don't feel intimidated. It's at all because they know that I know almost all of the rules off by heart.
mhm,
They know the rules, sure, but maybe not to the extent that me and two other players do.
sure.
And I've only played for 4 years this summer. Fucking hell. Fucking time. Oh boy. But yeah, so I don't feel intimidated at all by it.
Good, good, good. Because a lot of this design stuff that we talk about, I have noticed that inexperienced DMs or people that have been doing it for like under 5 years, or they've got like really experienced people at the table or new DMs, whatever, they get intimidated in the design process. They've got all these grandiose ideas, but they don't want to pull a trigger on them because how do we implement that? Glad we're not
Yeah,
dealing with those hurdles today. So high fantasy, and high fantasy for the average person is going to be Lord of the Rings or Willow, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Um, are you high magic or low magic?
Uh it's like it's medium magic.
Okay.
Like magic is a practice. It's not it mostly varies on the cities I've made so far.
Okay.
Because I've made a bunch of cities with the table you had, and it
Good.
always varies
Yeah.
between them.
Okay. So once we've decided on the genre and we've got a little bit of the tone as well, you said you wanted to inject a little bit of comedy, but are you going, um, is it going to be a serious gut wrenching experience for people? Is it going to have
Uh,
players crying at the table, or is it going to be beer and popcorn?
I don't plan on making them cry, but like I want them to also realize that I want them to, be a little upset if their character dies or if an NPC dies.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like
They should be
if
invested.
they cry, I'm gonna feel so bad because these are all great friends of mine. If it was if it was, to be fair, it also might be a bit biased because I feel awful when I make, because this is the girl group I talked about the last time. I feel awful about making anybody cry, especially girls. It's not. We might have to cut this out. No,
Uh,
but I don't give a fuck if I make my guy friends cry. They can go fuck themselves.
there's something different. If you can make the guys cry, you're doing something special, right? Especially when they're
Yeah,
surrounded by the other guy friends. It's just a different
yeah,
dynamic, and I understand that. I aim to make my players cry, but not through like anger or upset, but through good storytelling and tragedy and whatnot.
yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
want to do as well.
yeah. And I think that I'm going to get every single one of them by the end of the campaign, except for Dave. Dave is a total crack. So anyway, so the hardest part about building a kingdom is getting past the skeleton. There's good
Yeah.
news and there's bad news. The good news is you don't have to go much deeper than skeleton. The bad news is when you're designing a kingdom, the work never really stops. So I've said in the past on other episodes on the main podcast about the idea of rooms within rooms within rooms, right? And
Yeah.
this is how I DM. And for a quick refresher for everybody, the idea here is that when you walk into a room is a enclosed space that has a number of different items or areas or objects or people for you to interact with. And you can wander through the room, pick things up, sit in furniture, and you can interact with the room. If we were to write a novel, a character could come into a very cramped and messy room and sit down and interact with the room for 3 or 4 pages before another person walks in, because there's a bunch of stuff to do and explore and whatnot. Some things could be conflict, like there's something in the corner that smells or that might be dangerous or that reminds them of something that like sad from their past, or it could be something very benign that puts them at ease. But the idea is that you have this room, and every room you walk into is going to have that basic description. You have a restricted border so that you are in this space, and when you are in this space, these are the kinds of things you can interact with. But that room belongs in a house, and that house is a restricted space, and you can go into different rooms. And going into the kitchen to interact with things in the kitchen is going to be different than you going into a bedroom or going into the cellar. And when you go into a room within a house, you then zoom in on that specific room. But when you walk into the house, you have designed it the same way. You know that this is this enclosed space, and here are the things to interact with. Will your players go to this space, or this space, and what are they going to explore when they get there? And you can describe it with as much detail as you would describe the desk in the corner of the room. You would describe the dining room as they pass through past the doorway. If they go in, now they're in a new room, and you can describe it more. When they go up to that desk and they open the drawer, there'll be a bunch of stuff in there, and you can zoom in and describe more. And that desk drawer is a room itself. There's different items and objects and things to interact with. And so
Yeah.
you have, as a dungeon master, you only have to design the rooms at any given point that you are likely to interact with. Not the ones you're guaranteed to, of course, we already prepped those. And don't do anything more than what you're likely to do. Because when your players get to a room, because remember, every room is a restricted space. It has walls, or a country has borders, or the ocean that you're on a boat, you have, land around you, or you're on an island, you have water around you. Whatever the restrictive area is, there should have to be some sort of toll to get through that thing. The locked door, or just a heavy door. Sometimes it's not a toll at all, it's an archway, but it is a different feel as you go from one place to another. And that cost is, I'm leaving the last place behind. We can throw up all sorts of boundaries and hurdles and stuff to get in the way of players going from one space to another. So when we're talking about a kingdom or a country or a realm, we can zoom in and say, hey, we're going to stay pretty much in this specific spot. I only have to design this room, this city, or this district in the city, or this neighborhood in the district, or this block in the neighborhood, or the house on the block, or the room in the house, or the furniture in the room, right? And it's just zooming in rooms within rooms within rooms. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out almost all the way, because we're not literally building the world. And beyond that is the multiverse, and beyond that is the pantheon, right? So we're not zooming out all the way, but we're zooming out pretty big. And that can be intimidating because there are infinite amount of rooms within a realm before you start actually designing it, right? So when you fill the room, you need to do one of three things with all the different pieces, the things to interact with within the room. So every piece needs to either progress the story, present a challenge, or be entertaining. Hopefully all three. But it has to be at least one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you need to decide yourself, this is just DMing 101, then you decide yourself on the pacing, the level of the challenge. Is this the same kind of situation we had in the last encounter, so on and so forth, right? That's encounter balance. That's a whole other conversation. But
yeah,
what we do is we have to look at the pieces and figure out how to use them. And in order to do that, we've got to simplify the whole situation and go back to the beginning of design. The simple questions that we always ask, the 9 simple questions that every dungeon master always asks: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And how do we incorporate the 3 pillars of D&D? This is how I build my kingdoms. I have a little list, and actually, Andri, I'm going to send you this list at some point, probably when we finish this up, so that you can look at it, because I honestly use this list for most of my rooms within rooms. The good news here is that those 9 basic questions aren't really 9 questions. We're going to simplify it down to a smaller list, because when they all work together, they help flesh out a kingdom pretty well. Because when we look at the exploration tier of D&D, for example, that's when we're talking about the when and the where of the kingdom. And the when matters because you can't do kingdom design without a little bit of history, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the role playing tier, you look at the who and the why. Who's here? Why are they here? When you look at the combat tier, you look at what and how, essentially. Now, I understand that what is on all of them and why is on all of them and so on and so forth, but let me extrapolate a little bit. Because in order to design a kingdom, you need to make the questions more specific. Where are the settlements, roads, borders, and landmarks? That's your where. Your when is when in the timeline will the players be exploring this realm. Who lives there and why do they stay here? That's your role playing. And then your combat tier are what are the main three conflicts and how is the realm affected by these conflicts? So that's why I break it down when and where for exploration, who and why for role playing, and what and how for combat. So now that we've broken that out, there are all of these questions, these little details that I use as guides for myself. And we're going to start going through it. And this is the part, Andri, where you get to take over and start to babble about your design and whatnot. But the first thing I want to ask is, how many cities do you have?
Fuck, I have to count them. I made a few. There was just a weekend where I just went off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 of them.
Are any of them a capital city?
One of them is. One of them has the potential to be a capital city. I just made it. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, capital city.
My thing to do whenever I do a kingdom is I say, here are my maximum number of cities, right? And I always do my maximum number of cities with one capital city. That capital city can be like King's Landing capital city, where it's really just one gigantic walled fortress with many houses inside, or like a Minas Tirith. There's multiple rings of settlement within, and then farmland beyond. Or it can be towns. Like I then do towns, and I always try to have a little bit less than twice the number of towns as there are cities. And then I do just a shit ton of villages and farmlands and, And then from there, it's roadside taverns and hermits and, the little hippie village that lives in the woods. And like, it's all just a little shit beyond it. Right. So, but 7 is a healthy sized kingdom. 7 cities is big. Right.
Yeah.
I would hazard to say that you're probably talking with 7 big cities in a medieval fantasy realm, your kingdom's probably the size of the UK.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. There's going to be travel between those big cities. When you think about the population size, the farmland needed to support them and whatnot, and the different, if you're going to have that many cities, you're probably going to have a couple of different geographical locations like mountain ranges or large rivers or whatever. Your cities are probably going to be pretty spread out, because if you jam them too close together, then that is going to act for all intents and purposes like one really, really big city, right?
Yeah.
And is there the infrastructure to support that? So not that I particularly give a shit about the farming or the trade routes or the economic ramifications of shit for my role-playing games with D&D, but I mean, I care because I'm a nerd like that, but I don't want it to I need my players to suspend their disbelief, right? Like they gotta still buy into it. So and I do have characters or players at my table that will look me square in the eye and say, how does that make sense? Like, fuck off. Where are they getting the grain for that? Dave, shut up. A wizard, shut up.
So, yeah. It's a magical realm. Shut up, man.
So when it comes to the number of cities you have, are you planning on making any more, or are you good with the 7?
I had planned on making maybe one more, but like I then had to go to work.
Fair. So when you understand kind of the size of the scope of the kingdom you're working with and the number of cities you want, I'm assuming each one of them is radically different, unique, and each one serves a different narrative purpose.
Yes.
Okay. So they all belong in the kingdom, unless one of these cities is like clearly the outlier from another, like it's across the border to another kingdom or something. But like,
I think I made at least one of them like that. So realistically, I have 6 cities in this one kingdom,
plus the one you haven't made yet.
Yeah, plus the one I haven't made yet.
And I always this is just a little trick for me, so that I've got something to do like when I need a side quest. abandoned cities are like half
Ooh.
dilapidated ruins and shit. It's always good to throw in here or there. This was the city until, I don't know, a war, a famine, a natural disaster. It doesn't really matter what, but now there's shit to do
Dragons.
there. Yeah, right. Like, yeah. A lich moved in and then moved out. But so here are the real questions, okay? And we're going to start off with the settlements, roads, borders, and landmarks. Where are they?
Right.
Okay, so first we're going to look at geography because this is kind of the broadest we're going to get, and we're going to start to narrow in on our kingdom a little bit on the
Okay.
details of it. So I am going to actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste these questions. That way, when we're all done, I can send them to you
Very good.
as I type out your answers because you are the boss today.
Yes. Podcast is now mine officially. I take no responsibilities.
That's what I said, and here I am now. Fuck you, Dan. What have you done to me? All right, let me just set this up. So there's, I don't know, 20-ish questions we're going to go through here, maybe 25, but some of these will be easier than others. First of all, how big is the realm and what do the borders touch? And we said roughly the size of the British Isles in UK, right? So
yeah.
doesn't mean the shape of, just roughly the square acreage.
Meters. Yeah.
But who are the neighbors? Like or are there no neighbors on some sides? Like, is it just mountain range and we don't know what's beyond it, or desert, or, you know, deep jungle, or coast? Or does the world literally just stop there? There's a massive god wall that exists, or the world literally just ends because it is a flat disc, right? Like,
it's just like in video games. There's just an invisible barrier. No further.
you can keep running, but you're just running in place, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That would be so funny in D&D. No, I think there was at least one coast. I think this city was a coastal city, the one that I have in front of me.
Yeah, and it bordered, like, it was on the coast, but it bordered the Elven Empire too, right?
Yeah.
Is there anybody else? Are there any other, like, allies or enemies or neutral or trading partners, or is it wilderness?
I mean, there were the neutral like Goliath tribes in the mountains.
Yeah, but that was more wilderness, right? Like, these are just denizens of the wilderness.
I'd say there are some allies to the which way did we say it was again?
I want to say the elves were to the east.
Yeah, I think
which means
yes, yeah.
The coast is to the south,
yeah.
the mountains were to the north, and the kingdom was to the west.
Yeah, there we go. We remember it. Look at us go.
So we have the coast to the south, right?
Yeah.
And we have the Elven Empire to the east. Who's to the north? We had mountain ranges for the city, but
yeah,
there could be more. And keeping in mind, you can have a complicated map that it borders 4 or 5 different kinds of realms, right? Like,
yeah,
there's a kingdom here and a country there, and a conglomeration of free states over here, or just like, this is wilderness, this is just a desert, or the dragon has this place, we don't go there, right? Like,
yeah, I think far west there is a desert, at least, so nobody really goes there unless they need to traverse it for some reason.
All right. And again, it's fantasy. Like, you could just say to the north is the labyrinth, and no one ever comes out of the labyrinth, right? Like, it's just this massive continent spanning labyrinth. God, that's always been there. Like, you don't have to necessarily stay grounded when it comes to your world geography.
Yeah.
Eberron's really good about that. Not the Far Realms. Greyhawk is really good about that. The Forgotten Realms is pretty much just a medieval fantasy map. Like, there's not like this swath of the unknown. The Forgotten Realms, surprisingly, despite the name, is pretty well known.
Yeah, they remember it pretty well.
Someone's going to be yelling, "You forgot about this! There are unique places!" But I mean, like, yeah, there's not whole swaths of the map that are just like, "Hey, we just don't go here," right?
Yeah, even the unknown jungles of Chult are mapped.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and to the north, are we just keeping it as mountains, or did you want to have civilization up there?
I think I want it to be quite a vast mountain range. We can have some dwarves up there.
Okay. Um, do you have any other weird fantasy? I guess we're calling them species now that are neighbors. Is there like a small gnomish kingdom, or is there a vampire lord that lives in these mountains over there? Or is there like how do you want to? Is there anything else on
Um,
the borders? I'm thinking specifically of the little known or discussed Eldraine, which was a Magic the Gathering kingdom. The reason it's unique, we ended up getting a PDF for it in D&D Beyond, just like Eldraine
uh-huh.
creatures for some reason,
Yeah.
without an actual like campaign setting. But doing the digging, and I discovered the campaign setting is that it's a medieval fantasy kingdom that keeps the wilderness and wilds at bay as they ever try to encroach on
Oh.
with wildness and potential evil and monsters out in the dark, deep woods. Right? It's full of ogres and hags and fae and unicorns and like all sorts of craziness. So like when I say you can do more than just and this country and this country and this country,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I my first thought went into like halfling free cities or
Sure.
like city states just of halflings.
So we've got the coast to the south and the desert to the west and the mountains to the north. Do you
Yeah,
want them on islands? Do you want the halflings to be like a desert folk, or do you want them to be up in like the foothills of the mountains?
I think foothills of the mountains. Yeah.
All right. So that's all we need. The more we get into like, oh, the dwarven king is going to do this, and the halflings don't get along with the elven empire because of we're doing too much. That's not us building a
Yeah,
kingdom. That's a flushing a world, right? So
yeah.
staying on topic. So we've answered how big is the realm and what do the borders touch. What are four interesting landmarks? And just as a heads up, you shouldn't make all of them magical, but you should make at least a couple of them magical.
Uh, Landmarks. I think I had this one huge tree, like an abnormally big oak or a redwood, or like some sort of tree, and there's something.
Like magically massive.
Yeah, exactly, magically massive.
We don't need to go any deeper than that, right? Because
Yeah,
what we're doing is we're not doing encounters or history or reason why is a tree there, who put it there, what's the culture around it. We're not hitting that yet, right? That
yeah,
when we zoom into that room, then we answer those questions, right? But we're zoomed
yeah.
out for now. So, one magically massive tree. Think about this as well. You've got natural landmarks, magical
Mhm.
landmarks, and also man-made landmarks like the
Yeah,
Colossus of Rhodes or the Great Library or right Hanging Gardens.
yeah. I also thought about just an abandoned castle or a fort.
Is it haunted?
Of course, it has to be haunted. Otherwise, my players won't go into it.
Fair enough. Abandoned, haunted. Okay, castle, fort, city, keep. What's your scope here?
Let's go castle.
Cool.
Trying to like look around my apartment. I have so much stuff here. Surely one of these could be
I noticed
a
that you've
landmark.
got four of the five Game of Thrones novels
Oh, I
behind you.
should have all of them.
Yeah, no, you got all five there. But if you look there, I've got four of them with
Uh-huh.
the exact same covers as yours. But then I ended up getting
Yeah.
a hardcover for my birthday,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it ruined the freaking streak. And I'm so angry about it.
I bought these one at a time, but I was just lucky to get them each time. And then I have Fire and Blood right here because it's bigger
Yeah.
and different, and it's ruining the entire fucking aesthetic.
And can I just say also, like just from
Yes.
looking over your shoulder, how low
Uh-huh.
key great the Hunger Games novels are?
Oh, they're fantastic. I didn't read them like I because I listen to audiobooks, but
Right.
they're great. They're so good.
I took a big break from reading when I was doing all my film stuff when I was in my 20s and stuff, and it was the
Yeah.
Hunger Games novels that actually brought me back into reading.
Oh
So
yeah.
Charlie was like 10. Like, can we read these together? I'm like, yes, we will. So he was reading them and I was reading them, and I'm like, yes, this is
Yeah.
perfect. So that was cool. Anyway, you've got quite the funky setup in the background. The last
Thank you.
couple times it's been white. So,
So,
nice.
fun fact, this is the same wall behind
Yeah.
me as the last times.
You
I
just have
just
shelves now. Yeah.
I just have shelves now. That's
Yeah.
the only difference. I
Fair.
have barely moved. Uh,
Okay. So yes, back to interesting landmarks.
yes.
Do you just want to have like a natural, just like a geographical landmark, like a
Yeah.
special mountain range or waterfall, or like Niagara Falls is a special thing, or the Nile, or a gigantic
Ooh,
sinkhole or something.
a river, just long ass river.
Um, Gigantic river. Putting quotation marks, long ass.
That's the river's name now. Long
Yeah,
ass.
there you go. And do you have anything else? We've got the magical one, the haunted castle, so like a historical one, a natural one. Do you want like a man-made marvel?
That could be fun. A statue of a god. Insert god here.
Okay, which is like
Insert date. Insert deity. Sorry.
do you have a specific like size in mind for this, or is
Oh,
it
I
is it not
think
about the size? It's about the historical fact, or it's the what it's made out of, like it's pure adamantine or mithril, or like
I think it's the historic value really that I'm going for.
deity statue historic significance. All right, so that brings us to the capital city or palace. You already have
Mhm.
one. Do you have a name for it?
Jaka.
Can you spell it?
Jakaa.
Cool.
And this city is split by the river. And I'm telling you this because the way I named this city, I went to Google Translate, I went to Finnish and put split, and that is the Finnish word for split.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this you if you ask me more of my city names, you're gonna find a theme. I went to translate for all of them and just put in random fucking languages.
Hey, man, that fucking works, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you can lighten the load and you're happy with the outcome, cut corners, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Besides naming conventions, there's only a small subsection of people that really, really fucking love naming conventions and that
Yeah.
obsess over it. I am one of those people. I know that you like to have a specific meaning. You're not sitting there going, the city of Bragarar, right? Like,
I mean, I have done that before,
oh, I mean,
but
everybody
like
has, right?
at the same time, I would much rather find a hidden meaning.
Yeah,
Like one of these, I think it was in Hungarian. It's or no, it's Romanian. Biserica means divine, and this is a church town. Like
yeah,
it's way more fun to look at my players and they will never realize. But at the same time, I can't make it a language that they know
yeah.
because we all speak like three fucking languages.
Sure, yeah, of course. I know that Robert is also one of these freaking naming convention people because he named like his civilization that he and I built after you because it's a
Yeah,
volcano
yeah, yeah. I
island,
remember
right?
that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I mean that'll mean nothing to his players, but he's gonna grin every time that it comes up at the table, right?
Yeah. And then he's going to tell the story, and he's like, "Oh, it's this one Icelandic guy, and it's always erupting there now." And I'm just like, "You fucking idiot!"
Hey, you know what? If he ever publishes it, which I think that he might do one day, his notes are detailed enough. If he ever
Yeah.
publishes, you might become famous. Um,
Well, my name, not me. My name.
uh, we should get an artist to draw you as the hero cover of it. So
Oh, that'd be so. I hold on. I may or may not have a drawing of a character that is designed exactly after me. So maybe it's not too difficult to do actually.
I want you to know one of my favorite characters of all time is Tormund from Game of Thrones. I just think he's fucking hilarious. But I've
Torment
always
is
wanted
great.
to have big guys with red beards running around in my campaigns, and I can't do it because it feels like a self insert. And so I'm like, all right, oh, shit, okay.
No,
Um,
I absolutely will self insert myself into anything I fucking choose to.
Not even touching that. That's the quote of the day, Andre. So, when my next question here, and I think you've already answered this, is how many other settlements are under the protection of this realm? And you said that there are going to be you had 6 cities plus 1. If we
Yeah.
take out the capital city of Jakarta, then we've got 6 left. So 6
Yeah.
more cities, and then various towns and villages after that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Large swaths of wilderness.
I think so. Like
Okay.
wilderness is fun. It helps the exploration pillar.
Yeah, that actually is the next question here. Is it a rural sprawl between the cities, or an urban sprawl, or a
It's.
connection of paths and roads?
I mean, there's a connection of paths and there are roads. I want it to be roads, but
Of course.
the roads will cut through forests. They'll cut through like plains. Like it's not a short distance between them. It's always like a
Yeah.
journey and then villages in between, or like farms really. When
Yeah.
when the biome allows. There we go. Oh my god.
There you go. Yeah. So that leads right into my next question. How dangerous is life within the realm?
It's relatively safe. Like, but there are roaming bands of orcs, goblins.
So there are some raiders. Cities and settlements are safe.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's always a danger to travel. Bandits are always going to be a thing. Like,
Yeah.
no matter how, I mean, unless it's a city state, then, and even then, there are going to be just thugs in the city. Like,
Yeah.
there's
So-
always a risk to do anything in whether it's high fantasy, creative fantasy. There's always a risk in D&D. That's just the way.
But when we look at
game
like
is.
the wilderness,
The wilderness. I mean, I think after depending on how old the kingdom is and how like I don't think it's very similar to how it is in the US now. Wolves don't generally go for or go close to people, but then you go to these places that are very, very wild, and wolves will come to you and like sniff you.
I just look at it this way. If you are out in the wilderness in Canada, you're probably going to die. Just because of the mountains and the it's not even the wildlife, the terrain, the lack of shelter, right? If you are if you are lost in the wilderness of Iceland, you are going to be absolutely just engulfed by a volcano. It sounds like
that's stereotype. First of all,
no, but
it completely depends on where in Iceland you are lost.
Sure, but I mean that comes down to like if you're going to get lost in the badlands of Afghanistan, you'll probably die of thirst, right?
Yeah.
Or Australia, or even like Nevada in the States. Like there are swaths of areas. So when I ask how dangerous is life within the realm, my question is how survivable is it outside of the settlement?
I see. I'd say it's survivable, definitely. I thought you were talking about like other. I just misunderstood the question.
No, yeah, we're not zooming into encounters yet, right? Like, raiding parties is a part of that, right? Is a part of the danger, but like the environment itself, are people likely to die if they lose the road?
I mean, I think it would generally depend on where you lose the road. If you lose it in a very dense forest, that's very possible. But if you go off the road in like a plains.
Sure. Yeah.
Then you're fine. I think, but generally you should be fine.
Okay, so I'm gonna say it's moderately safe.
Yeah, it's moderate. Yeah.
All right. So that's the questions. That's everything that we need to know about where. We're going to move into when. You don't have to come up with long, complicated answers for the next 4 questions.
Okay.
It's just important to have the answers so that you can extrapolate on them when you go for a drive, when you're sitting there at work with your headphones in and you're like, oh, fuck yeah, this would be a cool detail to add. You need a launching point, right? So this is all we're doing when we're designing the kingdom is what's the launching point. Okay. First of all, is it a kingdom or a country? We're going kingdom, right?
We're going kingdom.
All right. So the capital city is like where the palace is.
Yes.
Okay. So the first question is, when was the realm founded?
I wrote this down.
Oh, you have this already. Cool.
Where did I write it down? Did I? Yeah.
Curse of the Dungeon Master. I have this somewhere. Give me a second.
I think I wrote it about the city initially.
Yes.
I didn't write the realm. Fuck.
So the general rule is that the unless like the city's been recently added to the realm or there's recently been a truce or whatnot, which I think is too complicated for our purposes now, just go big. Just go big.
Uh, uh, 2,798 years old. There you go. That's how old the realm is.
Oh, we're coming up in a couple of years on a great big centennial uh,
Yep. Yep.
festival. If the campaign goes long enough for you, zoom out long enough, that might actually be a fun thing to explore. Get your players in the capital city. This is why. I like these little details. What was the thing that happened 500 years ago
What was the thing that happened 500 years ago?
that would have affected the whole realm? And
That's an
again,
excellent question.
it could be a war, a natural disaster, a dragon attack, the red comet in the sky that was an omen, and then heroes were born. It was the death of the benevolent magical king. Like whatever it was, what was the thing that happened?
What was the thing that happened? Felt like I did something with this. Maybe
We
not.
did come up with a history for the city, but what was the big thing that like shook everybody?
Let's just say that there was a war between the Elven Kingdom or Elven Empire and this, because I believe the when we made the other city, it's not too far off of the 500-year mark.
I don't remember, but I mean, we could have it like be the big war with the elves, and then
Yeah.
more recent one was smaller. But what happened 100 years ago then?
What happened 100 years ago?
And here's the thing: it can be something smaller because there will be people, especially if you're dealing with dwarves and gnomes and things. There'll be people that remember this now,
Yeah.
right? So what happened 100 years ago that like we've got World War One happened 100 years ago, and people are still talking about it, right? There's not a whole lot of wars from 500 years ago that we're still talking about, right?
No, that's true. What happened 100 years ago? Let's say there was a flood.
Okay,
There was a flood.
keeping it easy. And then the last question on the timeline, when we're dealing with when, is what happened in the last generation?
What happened in the last generation of humans? I expect, not elves.
Yeah,
That's a bit broader.
Yeah.
The constructions of the new walls started.
Okay.
Nice and easy.
You mean city walls or border walls?
The city walls.
Or all cities?
Yes. With growing tensions between the elves and this kingdom. Yes.
Makes sense. Yeah. Towns too? Towns get defensive walls?
They got I wouldn't say impressive walls. They got walls.
Enough to stop the cavalry, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not going to stop a trebuchet, but it'll stop a horse.
Sure.
It's going to hurt if the horse goes full force into it.
That brings us to the next series of questions. We've gone through the where and the when, and so now we have our exploration, right? We know what we can expect just traveling through the realm, what that's going to look at. We know we just already determined our tone, and we don't necessarily know where the cities are placed. And incidentally, when you look at the map, the cities and the landmarks should be placed as if they're cities as well. Roads going to them or away from them as well. So
absolutely. Talking about roads, because I'm listening to Fire and Blood again. And one of the biggest thing with King Jaehaerys is fucking roads.
Roads are huge. Roads are absolutely huge. So and I think people take it for granted. I have waxed poetic in the campaign builder series about roads.
I need to listen back to the fucking campaign builder. It's been so long, and because a lot of it's on Patreon now, it goes past me a lot. I need to. I'm setting a great example as a top tier page.
It has evolved. The episodes we're doing now are like multi-part, deeper conversations. It's actually low key my favorite thing that we're doing right now. I love all of it.
Yeah.
But sitting down with Tyler now, we're nearly giddy coming up with campaign builder shit. So anyway, now let's move on to the who. So who are the predominant species?
And
it doesn't have to be the same as the city, right?
Yeah. I'll still say humans, but I'm not gonna make it only human.
Give me top three.
Top three. Humans, half elves, and let's go also with some. And it's all gone. It's gone. Just fuck.
We've got dwarves, halflings, and elves on the map already. We know that there are orcs and goblin raiders, and we know that we have Goliaths. So we don't have a strong showing of Dragonborn,
Yeah,
Tiefling.
there it is. Dragonborn. Oh
Okay.
my god. Fuck.
And then there's going to be just your spattering of tieflings and gnomes and
Yeah, I
ASMR and
mean
all that stuff.
that's absolutely. I think I wrote probably tieflings were more prevalent in one of prevalent. Fucking hell.
Well, hell, we'll add them. It's interesting because you're going to have more. You have more dragonborns and tieflings than you do elves and dwarves because the elves and dwarves are in neighboring areas, right? Okay, sure, that's
Yeah,
fine, but that's unique to your world because elves and dwarves are everywhere in D&D, right?
yeah.
But you also have half elves and tons of them. And it makes me wonder what is the like racial tension there.
I think.
We're at
I
war with
mean,
the elves. You know that not everybody, but you're going to have your secret society, your cult, your
yeah,
right, like the one
absolutely. I
city
mean,
where like half elves are not allowed, like shit like that, right?
yeah, you're gonna have. I think, especially in like the in. I think further into the kingdom, the further away you are from the actual kingdom, the tension is less
Yes,
because the no hi Timon, but the like cities and villages closer to the Elven Kingdom are gonna have a more of a iffy view,
yes,
which is why it's so hilarious that we made the Duke for the border town a fucking half elf.
I know. Yeah, yeah. I feel like that was very
But
specifically a political move by the king.
yeah, yeah, but people love him, so well, it's whatever.
All right, so I got a question, and I don't need names. I don't need personalities or descriptions. Who is in control?
The king,
All right, and now the real question: who is really in control?
the council.
Okay, how satisfied are the citizens?
I'd say they're moderately satisfied. I mean, there's a
Give me a percentage.
percentage. I'd say there's about a 60% satisfaction. All can you say the word? I can't say it.
Satisfaction, yes.
Thank you.
You can't get none. There you go. The Rolling Stones would say. Um, I want to backtrack for a second because I blitzed by it. The council is in control.
Mhm.
Is this a council of nobles? Is it a council of mages? Is it a council of advisors? Council of
It is
nuns?
a it's a mixed group of people. It's very small council in Game of Thrones. Like it is a mixed background somewhat. Like there you're
For
going to have a mage, you're going to have a scholar, you're going to have a noble. Like, do you know what I mean?
for lack of a better phrase, I'm just going to type in high council because I think that encapsulates it.
But yeah, it's good.
You want to give me just a general number? We're talking 6 people,
Uh
12 people, 20 people.
I think seven with the king.
Okay.
Because I like the fact that it's an odd number, so that there's always a majority if there is a vote.
Cool. Who enforces the law? And my question here is it knights? Is it police? Is it
Oh,
highway
okay.
patrol? Or is it like the religious order, like the Knights Templar? Is it the gods will reign like there's a council of like priests or judges? Like what are we looking at as far as how tied
I
is religion, that kind of thing?
I think we're saying knights.
Just straight up knights?
I mean, do you unless there can be like a mix? I don't know.
No. I mean, clearly every city is going to have its own situation, and like
Yeah.
the roads will have some sort of highway patrol. But like when these guys walk into town, they supersede the sheriff, right? Here on
Oh,
official
okay. Yeah.
business, right?
Then yeah, we're going knights. Yeah.
So when I ask knights, are these going to be religious knights, military knights, or magical knights, like knights with like paladins, where they have minor magical abilities? I mean, the religious knights could also have minor abilities.
Yeah. We'll go magical. We'll go paladins, basically.
All right.
Definitely not because I fucking love paladins and I have a bias towards
Hey,
them.
man, if you love them, use them because you probably know them better than other things.
Yeah.
So that brings me to the next question. With a 60% satisfaction rating and magical knights, how rampant are outlaws?
I'd say okay. I'd say it's not out of control,
But
but
there's
it is not. But it's there.
present but not prevalent.
Yeah.
And of course, when you go into the capital city, there's going to be some sort of crime syndicate.
Yeah,
There's going to be a thieves guild and a sats guild, blah blah blah. But like,
yeah.
it's not clutch your purse every time that you step outside your house, right?
No, 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 no.
Okay, so now let's talk about a little bit of the what. The question was, or sorry, a little bit of the why. The question was, why do they stay here, right?
Yeah,
So we've talked about what's bordering our kingdom, and clearly the average human can't go to an elf or a dwarf or they could probably live in the halfling foothills, but it'll be uncomfortable for them. There'll be a lot of
yeah.
back pain as they crouch consistently. However, I gotta ask, what does the rest of the world look like? Is this the only human kingdom?
No, I think definitely not. There are more human kingdoms or empires or realms. There are more human realms, like that are have a majority of humans.
What is the like predominant species of the entire campaign setting? Is it
Human,
humans?
elves, half elves.
Okay.
Because these are relatively new players. I'm trying to tie in just the general fantasy. Like,
Yeah. Look, it is classic for a reason.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. I mean, I've thrown in tieflings and stuff, and I'm gonna throw in everything. It's easier to with newer. I find it easier with newer players to have something that they can relate to more.
Yes. I agree with that 100%. How difficult is it to leave this realm to get to other human realms?
As in how dangerous it is, or how is it costly? What like?
What exactly? What is the barrier that keeps people from doing it? Because you've got
Yeah.
a coast to the south, so in theory there's ships, but you can't go east because of the elves, you can't go north because of the mountains, and you can't go west because of the desert unless there are desert roads or caravans that go. Like,
Mhm.
what's the thing that makes it so that people will look at each other and say, it'd be nice to live there, but we can't because blank.
Yeah, I'd say that it's difficult. You There are caravans that go into the desert, but it's a pretty vast desert, and the ships are just expensive to take outside of this realm. And I mean, the waters are not exactly the calmest or free of creatures in D&D.
Fair enough. So I've got expensive ships, dangerous desert caravans.
Yeah.
Okay. What benefits does this specific kingdom have over the others? What's the thing that makes it unique? Why would people want
It's
to live here?
ooh, why would anyone want to live here? This is the question I ask myself anytime there's bad weather or a volcano here in Iceland.
Oh, that's the question that I ask every time that I look at property pricing in fucking Vancouver.
I can relate to that, except here in Iceland.
Yeah, right. So,
uh,
um, so different benefits can be things that are like economic a lot of times, as we just discussed, or it can be the fact that every once in a while, and like you can really think outside the box on this, every once in a while, every couple generations, angels touch down and bless certain swaths of the population, right? And so people are here all the time. It could be something as simple as there is what do we have? The gigantic long ass river that we have.
mhm.
Which is just full of plentiful like farmland on both sides of the
Yeah.
river, right? And so, like, what's the thing? Or it could be something like it's just safer here. There are other human kingdoms, but they're constantly at war.
Yeah, I'd say that it's just generally safer here because I imagine this as like an as just a big ass island, like with some scatterings of there's the elves and then there's the dwarves in the mountains. Like this is New World. Do you
Sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I'm actually gonna put that in New World. I'm gonna put in also New World equals prosperity.
Yeah,
What drawbacks are there for the average citizen living here?
it's expensive. No.
No, not here.
Oh, sorry. Uh, my mistake. My mistake. What drawbacks are there? It's I don't know. I
This is where I start to look at it a little bit more 3D because we've come up with
uh
geography. We've come up with the other like surrounding realms and kingdoms and whatnot. So what's the drawback? I don't know. I'm gonna look down to the Underdark, or I'm gonna look up to weather patterns. Like, is it shit weather? Is it too hot or too cold? Is it like is
You're still describing Iceland and Vancouver, my guy.
um are there are there for some reason a shorter life expectancy here? Right.
I think it's going to be because this is New World. There are more monstrosities and things. Like
Okay.
you're going to see more. To tie it in, there's going to be more wyverns in the sky hunting rogue or caravans and such. Like, and because of more prosperity, there's going to be more bandits. There it is because it is New World. There's the
Yeah, yeah,
new
yeah.
frontier. I
There we
finally
go.
found the fucking word. Oh my god.
Um so I've got then there's more wilderness threats than in the other realms.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. How are nobles treated here
By the common folk
in general?
or
How,
in
how does that?
general,
How does this country treat nobles?
well, I suppose.
I look
Uh,
at it. I look at it this way. I'm thinking about the American expansion west when it was like cowboy
mhm,
towns and stuff, and you could
uh-huh.
go there with money, but you'd be the guy with money. You are responsible. People will come for you. There's not a
Yeah.
whole lot of a like. How are nobles treated? Are they like treated with respect, like they're living in a major city, like in New York City, or are they like are people narrowing their eyes at them because this is the new frontier? Why are you here?
Um.
And New Frontier, by the way, the realm was founded nearly 2,800 years ago. So,
Yeah.
so like this is an ancient world. You've decided.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I did. But I did say I it's an audio format, but I did do like the new world, like
sure.
with the
Yeah, yeah.
quotation marks.
Maybe it's just newly
Uh.
developed. Like it was always here, but it was a couple of cities. But now it's starting to thrive and become.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean the city we built is only 500 years old,
yeah. There you go.
roughly.
Yeah.
Like at when you have elves in a world, like that's
And that's the point that it's going to be interesting to drive that point home to your players through
yeah.
storytelling as well, right? Like it's the new world. Didn't you say it was nearly 3,000 years old? Yeah, but there's only 6 generations for dwarves. Like,
Yeah, and 3 generations of elves. Like
yeah,
it's not that much.
the same dragon has been here the whole time, right?
Yeah, the great worm underneath the mountain is waiting for the dwarves to just go a little too deep.
Exactly. So yeah, how are the nobles treated? Are they
I'd say they're not because of this. Like I think human nobles are they are there definitely have been there for quite a long time. Like I said, this kingdom is 3,000 years old, so there are at least 30 generations of at least one noble family.
yeah, okay. So they're well established and well respected.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, if you go to a town that is run down and the nobles aren't helping you, they're gonna be like, "You fucker, why are you here?"
I will put in generally
Yeah.
well established and respected. Okay. How are criminals treated here?
I mean, there's always there's scorn for criminals. Like I
No, but,
think,
but we're talking capital punishment? Are we talking rot to death in the dungeon? We're talking decent rehabilitation program, banishment.
well, we're not in Scandinavia right now. There's no rehabilitation right now. No, I think severity of crime. Like, why are you in it for? If you're in a guild, maybe if you're stealing bread because you're poor and need to feed your family, I think generally you look like, oh, you're just getting by. Like,
Okay, so it's actually I don't want to say lenient, but it's moderately lenient.
yeah, like why are you committing the crime and how severe was that crime?
Okay.
This is just the Icelandic fucking. I'm so Icelandic and northern, like Nordic. This is ridiculous.
But again, you're not trying to challenge your new players, right? But if
No,
you've got a
it's true,
complicated legal system or a particularly brutal like beginning of a ladder,
bro.
right, where they're going to
Like,
chop your hand off for stealing an apple, right? Like,
yeah, like I in this new campaign that I'm playing, I'll do this really quickly. My DM, I'm playing like an outlaw. I killed a man in self-defense.
sure,
But then he showed me the fucking justice judicial system, and I was just like, "What the fuck is going on?" That's
yeah.
extensive, and I just went, "Yeah, cool, bro. You decided, like, I'll do whatever."
I think I've got a whole swath of my campaign setting that my players have not been to over 3 campaigns now, and they're going to go there later in the campaign. I just have always kind of blocked it off from them, and they're
Yeah.
the twin cities of Dome and Doma that are there, and
Mhm.
and they're so desperate to find out what's going on in the twin cities. And I think one of the big things about it that's going to be very unique to them is duels,
Oh.
right? And so, like, when I think about criminals and the justice system, duels will be a part of this, right? So,
Yeah.
and accepted duels. If you don't like someone, and you can get a permit from the city to then challenge them to a duel. And if you're good enough, you will kill them and get some sort of reward from them based on what your
Nice.
beef is. But like I think I'm gonna explore that a little bit. Might be a little bit too crazy. How are outsiders treated?
Um, I think with suspicion,
Okay.
because like, why are you here?
This is outside of your regular traders, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Um, all right. So now we're going to move on to the what. This is our combat tier. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we've done exploration for the where and the when. We've
Mhm.
done role playing so that we know who we are and why we're here. Right.
Yeah.
Now we need 3 main conflicts. Okay. These are very simply laid out, and I do this for all of my campaigns. There's always 3 conflicts: the one that drives the plot, the one that hooks over 50% of the players, and then
Yeah.
the one that hooks you, the DM, because you got to have
Okay.
fun too, right? So there's the overall plot of the campaign. Then the one that hooks over 50% of the players is the thing that is not related to the main conflict, but it is a thing that's also happening.
Yeah.
Um, for I did a one-on-one campaign with Mieka for a couple of years there, where she was like the main plot of the campaign, where she's looking for her parents and she's trying to get to safety because she's just been an orphan wandering the roads. What hooked her though was the fact that she was a tiefling, and there were a bunch of like the highway patrol that kept the roads quote unquote safe were
Mhm.
known for their chant of no horns, no scales, and they would chant
Oh.
that. So they would murder anything that was scaled, like kobolds and dragonborn, or anything with horns, like tieflings. And so one of the earliest encounters was a bunch of there were 2 tieflings that had a bunch of tiefling orphans, and they were hiding under a stone bridge as Mieka came upon them. And they're like, yeah, the patrol is nearby, and they just killed half of us, and we're all that's left. The kids are crying. That radicalized Mieka's character in a heartbeat, right?
Oh.
Nothing to do with the main plot, but man, we spent a lot of time on that. So,
Yeah.
so what's your main plot that's going to drive this? And you don't have to come up with the details. Having something as simple, because we did this with the city, right? There's
Mhm.
the dragon and the elven empire. That's
Yeah.
your main plot, right?
Yeah. True.
We've got to deal with this. If we go into our own kingdom for any reason, it is because we are trying to have long-term goals to deal with the dragon and the elven empire, right?
Yes.
Is it more complicated than that? Did I miss something? You tell me. It's your campaign.
It's definitely not more complicated than that. I'm a pretty simple guy, really.
Um, Dragon and Elven Empire. Okay. And of course, you said last time when we were talking about this, a couple of times ago, actually, that the average elf doesn't know that it's a dragon.
Yes. I don't think anybody knows that this is a dragon. Like this is like Grima Wormtongue to Rohan.
This
But
is
like,
yeah, this is perfect because like it's simple for our kingdom. The thing that drives the plot, the conflict, is that the Elven Empire is the problem, right? But we have intrigue. There's secrecy. There's
yeah,
political um, con- conspiracies and whatnot.
yeah. The
Um,
reason why this is a problem is because the dragon is manipulating everything.
yes. So what's a hook for? I want you to think about your players, and this can be very general, and you can flesh this out as you actually start building encounters and plot pieces and set pieces and whatnot. But what's something that's going to hook 50% of them? For Pepperina, it's going to be some romance with a hot vampire. For Megan and Casey, it'll be giants, right? And for
Yeah.
Dave, it's going to be airships and Warforged, right? Like what's and I'm just listing like monster types at this point, but what's the plot hook that's going to really bring them in?
50% of them. I have 5 players.
Yeah, so what's going to catch 3 of them? Where
It's
you
gonna
know that
catch
they're going to
3.
show up because, yeah, we're saving the kingdom, but also there's this thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, there. Do you know what's funny? It's so simple to hook these 5 because I could literally make an NPC kick a dog and then kill the NPC on site. But I'm not going to do that because that's stupid. I think a dragon. Honestly, a dragon is going to hook him. It's so simple.
So you have 2 dragons?
I can no. No. Do you know what? Yeah, let's have 2 dragons. These fuckers love dragons, and I love dragons. Why not? Let's have 2 dragons.
Okay, so we've got, it was a green dragon in the Elven Empire, right?
Yes,
Is that what we decided?
we
So
did.
who's the dragon and where are they? Do we have a blue dragon in the desert? Do we have a red dragon in the mountains? Do we have a we don't really have anywhere for a white dragon or a black dragon to be, but they're gem dragons. They're
That's true.
shadow dragons, like a lot. You can do a dragon turtle even, right? Like there's lots of things to.
Yeah. God.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes, you may. I love recommendations.
Having a metallic dragon that has fallen, that has been corrupted by the Shadowfell, and
Oh yeah.
like was an ally of the kingdom and is now hiding somewhere in the wilderness. There are sightings of this dragon, and maybe you just make them an adult. Like, doesn't have to be an ancient dragon, right? Something for tier 3 because it is the secondary thing, right?
Yeah. Sure. Let's make it a corrupted silver dragon.
Dan just cried and doesn't know why.
Good. Yeah, I honestly I corrupted silver because the silver is such a social being and like used to come to the capital and make itself known to be I am a silver dragon. I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. What's the one thing that's going to hook you as a DM? What's the plot line that's going to make you interested? This will be the third most important thing that like you also get to tell your story that you always wanted to explore in the background.
The increasing hyena attacks.
You're going Knowles.
I fucking love Knowles.
Beauty. Okay, so these are our main conflicts here, and they're going to be able to interact with each other in different ways because when you go into the palace or you go to the capital city, like they're going to have different priorities. And again, we keep going back to Game of Thrones, but it's I think what's in everybody's mind right now, still, yeah, is how there's this grand threat on the border of the White Walkers coming, and Cersei was, I don't give a shit, prove it. I don't believe you. King's Landing did not care. They had other things to worry about, right? And so whether it's Knowles or the Silver Dragon or the Elven Empire, they're all going to be reacting or interacting with each other in different ways. The Green Dragon may know where the Shadow Dragon is and might use that to its advantage. Or the Silver Dragon is going to disrupt and displace the Knolls wherever they are, right? So scatter them to the wind sometimes and they come back in greater numbers. And like you can have, as these groups travel and test the borders and the different cities and whatnot, you're going to have the landscape of the kingdom shift and change both geographically as refugees run or cities go into lockdown with these new walls. But you're also going to have things like, hey, we need you to go protect this town because the construction of their walls is almost done, but the Shadow Dragon is nearby.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got little things where you've got to convince the king or the council. You have to convince 4 of the 7 council members through a bunch of social side quests to vote to send a certain percentage of the army to this border for this reason, right? Like you've got a lot in here and it's all going to intertwine and like braid itself together nicely. And that brings us to the last bit, which is the how. And I'm going to be upfront. The players dictate the how.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's not a fucking thing you can do about it. So we're going to look at kind of everybody else except the players, and then the players are going to come ruin our plans. Okay, so
obviously, and then I'm going to have to improv on the fly anyway. So all of this prep will go down the drain.
Yeah, but assuming your players didn't exist, we have to think about how the realm has recently changed because of the main conflicts.
Yeah.
And you've already talked about construction of new city walls for all the cities and some of the towns, right? But is there anything else? Is there new traveling papers that need to be had to keep spies out?
There's new tolls in the capital, toll booths. because of the increasing threat, and they need more for the treasury. There's an increase in conscription everywhere. Some towns that never needed guards now have at least a militia ready.
So what you're telling me is that there's a general feel here, a tone. The kingdom is preparing for war.
Yes.
That is good enough to start with, because as you go to different places and you look at this in your notes, the kingdom's preparing for war. That will mean different things to like a city that's on this gigantic river, or one on the coast, or one by the desert. Like, it's going to mean different things to different people depending on how far away they are. If the silver dragon, for example, is like harassing the area over by the desert, that's nowhere near the Elven Empire. So maybe the resources that came to build walls, and the soldiers and the conscripts and things that came here to, like, everybody's going to get a certain garrison of this many people. Great. We're using them for raiding parties into the desert to hunt down this dragon, right? Like, they're not defense, they're offense, because they're using the resources differently, right? So this is preparing, there we go, for war. This is, I guess, the big overarching vibe. It's not necessarily the theme. It's not necessarily the setting. And we know it's not the tone, right? But it's going to be the vibe of this kingdom, that probably once an episode there should be, or once a session, we should have evidence of this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So how have the people in control reacted to the main conflicts?
I'd say that they are panicking slightly. Like, they are on edge because they have believed for all these years that there is going to be peace, and then all of a sudden the tension, I wouldn't say broke, but the tension shifted. Yeah.
You should have, and we don't need to do this today, you should think about your inciting event. What was the thing?
Okay. Right. I can think about
having suddenly, and it could be something as simple as the princess was murdered in the night, right? That's an inciting event. The king's going to react, the council's going to react, we're going to war, right? Like, maybe it's not the princess, maybe it's just the high priest, or
the archduke took a tour and got killed by a guy in his chariot, or
completely by accident. You fucked it up the first time they went to the pub.
He was at a cafe and then saw him stroll past and decided to shoot with a crossbow. Fucking hell. Some demilitarized land got militarized again, and then just snowballed from there.
There you are. So how has law enforcement reacted to the main conflicts? You said increased conscription.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I mean, because of taxes, because the taxes and tolls have now been enlisted, so crime is maybe slightly on the rise again, because of both unsatisfaction about set tolls and taxes, and everything is just getting more expensive. You know, it's like inflation nowadays, you know.
The other thing that I want to point out is when you get conscription, you're going to need more officers, which means you're going to need more knights, which means you're probably going to have knights that didn't deserve to be knights 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say corrupt necessarily, but there's definitely a downgrade in quality.
Yeah. And some of these, like, actually the knights who deserve it are like, the king or the council should never have allowed this. This is a stain on our order.
Yes. All right. How the citizens, the average citizens, reacted to the main conflicts?
Average citizen.
Are they going to care? They're behind city walls, or are the farmers getting raided?
I think it depends on again where you are in the kingdom. If you're close to the Elven border, I think the citizens are more on edge and are starting to fucking. This is the problem with knowing so many languages. Oh my god! No, not insulate. That's a different thing. Fuck, what's the word?
What are you looking for? Segregate? If they're pushing the outsiders out?
Whoa.
No, not the American. No, I know. Not the American definition of segregate. Come on now.
No, what the fuck? No, fucking, not insulation. Fucking
fortify.
Yes, but differently. What the fuck's the word?
Is Google Translate going to be your best friend right now?
Maybe. No, I don't even remember any fucking Icelandic. Ah, oh no.
Incidentally, for anybody listening, I'm going to leave all of this into the episode because this is a character moment that I think most absent-minded wizards should have when they know 4 fucking languages, and they're like, oh yeah, no,
Absolutely.
what do I need for the spell? It's the shit.
Yeah. This is I have never
I,
oh
I, I,
this happens all the time for
I
me.
remember the root word in Draconic, but fuck, hold on a second.
Yeah, exactly. I look, I can envision the word. I can see it. I know what it means. I know the definition. No, I couldn't tell you the definition. Fucking isolate. I got it. Isolate. Oh my fucking god.
So
Woo!
so segregate. It's the same thing.
Oh,
They're pushing
well,
others
there you go.
away. So
Yeah.
yeah, there we go. So it's they're saying we're going to separate ourselves from you. And when you're talking about isolate, do you mean like within the community, or our town is different than the kingdom, or we no
Uh,
longer accept outsiders? Like what kind of isolation?
my isolation, I think it's more like within the community, especially they start isolating specifically half elves and not so much dragonborn, but also just within, because who knows who is a spy, who isn't a spy, like you know.
Does the Elven Kingdom have a lot of half elves too?
I'd say so. I'd say they definitely have half elves.
I think that is the correct, interesting answer. I like
Yeah.
that. That's good.
I
Um,
think I'd say though that the half elves within they're not as respected as elves are in that kingdom, but they are definitely have their use to the elves.
so then that brings me to my last question, which is looking at your conflicts and looking at kind of the political and the kind of political landscape, the tone, the temperature of the population right now.
Yeah.
What's the party going to need to do? What is their big quest thing? Are they out? Are they trying to stop the war? They're trying, or you as a DM know this. They may not know, right? But do they need to kill the green dragon? Do they need to evacuate your main city in tier 3? Do they need, like, what's the thing? What are the 1, 2, 3 ish big things that they're going to have to do?
I mean, to stop this forever, they would have to kill the green dragon. I think, or at least slow it down, like disrupt the plans, like whatever. But end goal would probably be killing it.
It's a D&D party. They're gonna murder
There,
it. Yeah.
I don't. Do I have a bard in my party? I don't.
I
Uh, um, my second phone going off. The fuck? Sorry. I have a work phone and a not work phone because I like to keep my work away from my
just assumed you
social
dealt
life.
drugs. That's all. So
I mean, that's the third job I have. No.
yeah, okay.
um, Dragon. Okay, I'm back. I think they would have to. Oh, there it goes again. Look at it go.
So here's the thing: when we're looking at what's a party going to need to do, I mean, what do they need to do to end the campaign, right? Like, what's the campaign success requirement, right?
Oh,
When
okay.
like there are gnolls, we'll deal with gnolls. There may be a gnoll insurrection or uprising or whatnot.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter. Like that doesn't matter for the campaign. That's a thing we'll do in the
yeah,
background, right? That's the
yeah,
same thing with the silver dragon. Like we'll be interested in that. We'll deal
yeah,
with it, but that is not a win condition, right?
yeah. Those are side quests.
Yes. So
They're pretty big side quests, but side quests nonetheless.
what is the win condition? Kill the green
Win
dragon.
condition. Yeah, I think win condition is killing the green and snapping the Elven Emperor from his mania, so to say,
Okay.
or from the dragons.
Grasp.
No, and goal killing the green. Preventing the war is knocking the Elf Emperor out of the Green Dragon's grasp, because the Green Dragon is just going to wait for the next Elven Emperor and do it again.
Yeah.
He has time.
How do we want to put that? That would be exposing the truth to the Elven Emperor.
Yeah.
Honestly, that might be good enough. And I'll tell you right now, this last one that you've just done, exposing the truth of the Elven Emperor, that's going to be everything, because all of the stuff with the elves is on the border. It's in our
Yeah.
city that we created. There's going to be exploration up into the mountains with the orcs and the Goliaths. Like we know where tier 1 and 2 are sitting. But there's
Yeah.
got to be a rumor, there's got to be a quest, there has to be a mystery, something that sends our players into the kingdom, into the
Yeah.
heart of the kingdom for whatever reason, and to tour the kingdom a little bit, right? And if they discover not everything is as it seems, there's something rotten in the Elven Empire. The
Hmm.
average elf is not a warmonger, so why is it this way?
Hmm.
Well, you've got to go talk to this person here. There are diviners in the capital, right? There is a small neighborhood of exiled elves that live on the border of the desert, as far away from the Elven Empire as possible. They might
Yeah.
have answers, right? This is going to push your players into the kingdom because they need to expose the truth, and that's going to be up to you as a DM to determine when they're going to learn. Not that the green dragon is a green dragon, not that the elven emperor is being corrupted by this green dragon or being coerced anyway,
Hmm.
but they're going to learn that something's wrong and they need to find out what, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that might be your big driving force here before all
Absolutely.
war breaks out, right?
Yeah.
So we built the kingdom so far, and this is the only thing you need to do, because at this point you're just going rooms within rooms from there.
Yeah.
uh, so what do we do now? You build your cities. You've already done that. And you place them in appropriate distance from each other based on what you want to do as far as random
Hmm.
encounters, wilderness travel, and when you're going to give them mounts and carriages and airships and shit. When are
Yeah.
teleportation circles going to make the distance on the map not matter anymore? It's up to you to decide. But I have a massive sprawling map that takes weeks to get from one place to another,
Yeah.
because I have two players at my table that fucking love random encounters. Once you've put your cities the appropriate distance from each other, you populate your landmarks. And not just the four interesting landmarks, but things like major bridges over this
Yeah.
massive river that you have, like the other bits and pieces. And this is where you would figure out, what are the points of interest. If I want to have these three cities or these two cities 3 days apart from each other, where are they camping on each night? Is it a roadside inn?
Yeah.
Is it a campsite at the side of the road? Is it a small village that will have a little bed and breakfast? And if so, what do I expect to do there? Right. So, and then you draw your map. That's going to be different
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
And
I'll
then
figure out a map.
and here's the thing that always, I've got it written down in a cheat sheet on the inside of my DM binder, right on the inside of the cover. As your players get close to a part of the map, you plan ahead and build small random encounter tables. You don't do
Hmm.
it ahead of time, you only do it slightly ahead of time.
Okay.
Because when you go from one region to another, those random encounters should overlap a little bit. Oh, there's a lot of goblin raiders in this part of the kingdom. Okay, we're moving out of this part. My random encounter table still has smaller groups that are more sparsely populated. Like there's still some goblin raiders. You had
Yeah.
a 30% chance running into them in the last room, but in this room, you've got a 12% chance of running into them, because
Yeah.
that's real. And it gives me the opportunity when I look at the random encounter to say, hey, what else is in here? Because I'm stumped, right? So here's what I actually have written down. If I'm in the wilderness, I have to have moderately difficult combat encounters and a table for moderately different combat or difficult combat encounters, and a table for simple exploration encounters.
All
The
right.
the washed out bridge, the abandoned cart, little things that'll make them stop and say, "Oh, I'm doing this."
You
When it
just you
comes
just
to
triggered a PTSD from D&D for me.
oh yeah,
The amount of times I have had to try to cross a fucking river. Oh my lord! And it was
I,
always
I
it's
think
this.
I
It
feel
was
like every group has that, but it's different for
yeah.
them. My guys, their PTSD, I'm not joking. If they hear a disembodied voice calling for help from the darkness, from somewhere they can't see, it is
Yeah.
high alert. They team up. If they were splitting the party and spreading out, no, they all
Yeah.
come back together, defensive positions. Who's got the health potions out? Fuck, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So
It was for me. There's a river, and I went, oh, not again. Because I remember chopping down trees to try to get over. I remember jumping. Nothing would fucking work because I was a barbarian. I used to just throw the other party across, no problem. And then I had to get over.
well, chances are good you're going to jump and swim. So
If I didn't roll badly, yeah, sure.
So my random encounter tables, I have it for each tier. I've got simple, moderate, and complex. So in the wilderness, I don't bother with role playing at all.
That's fair.
Simple exploration, moderate combat.
Yeah.
Because I don't want complex combat or difficult combat because I don't want to kill my players with a random encounter. That's the worst. I'll kill them with a plot point, no problem. That feels meaningful, right? When it comes to roads, simple exploration. Again, there's not a whole lot of stuff to do out here. Roads should be relatively safe, so I don't do combat encounters. I have moderate role-playing opportunities.
Yeah.
Who do you meet on the road? When it comes to going to the landmarks, the interesting places, I have simple role-playing and complex exploration. These are unique, interesting places that we're dealing with, like the abandoned haunted castle. Yes, you're going to have things in there, ghosts and shit to fight, but they're not random encounters, right? So the random shit that's happening when you're in the abandoned castle is going to be the environment doing interesting and weird things that need to be interacted with. When it comes to settlements, whether it's a village all the way up to a city, moderate role playing and simple combat. Expected, like you're going to run into strangers, there will be things to do, and sometimes a fight might break out.
Yeah.
And then in the capital, complex role playing, complex exploration, complex combat. If you get in a fight in the capital, it should be a three-way fight between gang, and the rival gang or law enforcement. It should be you get dragged into a magic shop, and but you can't leave against your, like, you're held against your will to try to rob you, and now you're fighting a mage, and like it's got to be more complex and weird because you're in the fucking capital city, right?
Yeah.
So but that's it. That's how I build a kingdom. And other than that, I'm just doing rooms within rooms within rooms from there. Once I've got this skeleton, this big list, after that, it's just zooming in or zooming out and being aware of what's beside me. What are my transitions? And how am I going to either stop people from going from one region to another, or make it difficult, like make them have to earn it, or make it very easy for them as we progress forward? Because not every road deserves random encounters.
Yeah.
So how intense was this process compared to your basic skeleton?
This was not that intense, actually. Or maybe I'm not understanding the question, actually.
How much more involved? When you said at the beginning, it's hard. It's hard to do your the coming up with anything more than just a basic skeleton. You get that far, and then
this was a lot more detailed than my skeleton would ever be. Like, this skeleton has, all its bonus, whereas mine would have a skull, a spine.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll throw this up on the Patreon for the patrons to look at. I'll just come up with a pretty list of the questions to ask. We'll talk about random encounters at some point.
Yeah. Next episode with Andri.
Do you have any final thoughts? Anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to?
How do you just as a general question, when you start a campaign, do you explain the world and what's going on briefly, or how?
Yes. Do I have it here? Hold on. I know it's an audio medium, but let me see if I can show you. There we go. If the DM smiles, it's already too late, is what it says on my DM binder. I will show you. I hand out, let me see if I can grab it here. I hand out a calendar. It's two-sided. I have a big-ass list of important people.
Oh boy.
Everybody gets this handout. And then I have, and I think I handed it out, actually. I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it in this anymore. I must have given it to somebody. But I've got about a 5-page list of important places in the world. And I tell them, you don't have to look at this ever. Unless, as you decide to head to this place, you can flip through and say, oh, what would my character possibly know about this? Here's what you know. And based
Yeah.
on the character history, I tend to have something noteworthy in there for each player character that might interest them. If I have, like I say, a Goliath barbarian and an elven druid, and there will be a little detail in there that will interest them or say, there's nothing in here for you, right?
Yeah.
Like it's mostly neutral, but every once in a while there'll be something to like hook somebody. So all of this is done in session 0.
Yeah.
Before you build your characters, here's what we're in for. Dan did this famously in his most recent campaign where he said, you guys, I sent a text message out to everybody in general, and you said you wanted to do pirates. So this is the shape of the world. Here's going to be kind of the scope of how far we have to travel. A lot of this for the first half is going to be on the ocean, and we're probably going to be heading into actual land masses for the most part. But again, still lots of water. And here's what you need to know about the gods. Here's what you need to know about the political climate. Here's what you need to know about the legends. You had about a half-page blurb for each one of them. And he said, now, be prepared to get on ships and travel around. This is the big deal. You will eventually get your own ship, but not right away. So you are still young, level 1. There you go. All of his players built appropriate characters, except one who built a fucking paladin, a like gleaming knight in shining armor, who just did not read any of the stuff, did not listen to Dan, and he has been fighting with that since.
Yeah.
And so if you've got players that take it seriously, that are going to pay attention, telegraph it. Let them know what they're in for.
Okay.
It's the greatest thing in the world for me right now because all of my players have been playing in my world, except for Dave, for at least one campaign. So they know what they're in for. They know what to expect. They know the tone. When they created their characters, they said, this is the city I'm from, because they were already familiar with the world. If you've got new players, that might be a lot to ask from them, but as you do a session 0 to sit down and help them go through what their character build is going to be, I almost never say, no, don't do that. It doesn't fit the world. But I will say, you want to be a dwarven battle ranger in the kingdom that we just made today, then why are you down here from your dwarven kingdoms in the north?
Yeah.
Right. You're allowed to do it, but have a good reason. It is not a test. Just make it a strong opinion, like a vibrant reason why you are down here. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then telegraph it, give them, type up a couple of pages. You don't have to be like me and Robert and do pages and pages and pages. You can do a page, page and a half, bullet point, or record your voice saying it and send the MP3 to them so they can all listen to it while they drive, right? Like, however it is, get them all on the same page. And I find it easiest to start off my session 0 with all of the good questions and rules, like what are your boundaries? What's the red flags? What are you looking for? What are you not looking for? That shit, right? The safe space conversation. And then I follow it up with, here's the world.
Yeah. Okay.
You've already asked them the big question, like what kind of campaign do you want to be in, right? Because you don't want to build the world and have them say, I want to do gothic horror. Like, fuck. Right. Right. So because you already have that question and you've already built this, you say, hey, this is what I've made for you guys. But remember, there will be feedback. It's dwarves in the north. We did a lot of dwarves in the last campaign. Say, all right, okay, Goliath's in the north, right?
Yeah.
At this point, that doesn't change too much because you haven't built those real solid, scary details, right? You've just got a general, at any point, we can change anything on any one of these lists or maps or details, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And incidentally, doing a light version of these questions is a great way to come up with your neighboring kingdoms as well.
Yeah.
You don't have to go. You don't have to go as deep. Like your guys are not going to hang out in there too long, but just grab the bits and pieces, something to like read over and think about, not necessarily fill out the answers, right?
Yeah. No, I ask because I find a lot of the campaigns I have done do make it out of a few sessions, but they always falter because I have not explained it in this way, and I'm always trying to figure out how to make them not understand, tell them the vibe, what's happening, like what is going on, because I always just do something. I never had a concrete base to start off of.
So the very first thing is, it is okay to be meta. It is absolutely all right to just from the beginning tell them, here's what you know, here's what you can expect, we're planning to go up to level 12, and we're going to level every 4 sessions or so, or we're going to do landmarks. If you guys get distracted and start dicking around with camels for 3 sessions, then you're going to level, right? But like, if you are going to stay on task, this is kind of the pacing we're looking at. I want to spend a lot of time in tier 2 and tier 3, so we're going to zip through tier 1, and tier 4 will probably wrap up pretty quickly, right? Like, you can tell them whatever you want, whatever your expectations are, but have it all written out ahead of time and be very clear. And like I say, I hand it out to my players. I would give them the calendar, I give them the list of landmarks, so that, and I give them a copy of the map if I think they would have the map, right? If there's citizens of this world, they would know the map. Maybe not the exact city street names and shit, but when you look at the kingdom room, if we zoom out to that room, they should have a general understanding of this, right?
Yeah.
And their map might be a little bit different than yours, where you draw up your map and it's a little bit more detailed, and their map, like your map has got, oh yes, and the elven kingdom is over here because you zoomed out a little bit more, right? And you've got the palace listed and one of their main strongholds and their main shipyards, but they just have written on theirs in giant bold letters, evil elven empire.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, okay. The evil guys are here. It's confidence, right? And this is going to help them get a foothold at the very beginning so that they know what's going to be useful. This is why we have things like Indiana Jones, the planes on the map going on the red lines from space to space, or like the Lord of the Rings zooming in on the map overall, and it starts with a narration, right?
Yeah.
Gigantic flashback sequence. This is why we have James Bond on the, like, skiing through the mountaintops, shooting enemy spies on skis. Like, we're setting the tone early so people know what to expect. And that's kind of what our session 0 conversation is going to be. Here's the story we're telling. Who do you think would be a really interesting character to play in this story, right?
Yeah.
And then, honestly, Andri, just rooms within rooms, and know when you're zooming in and when you're zooming out, and don't prep anything else. If something occurs to you, is like, hey, that's a really good detail to add to the capital, then you put that in the file with the capital, and you don't ever fucking think about it again until you open up. It's time to prep the capital. They're heading there, and you just have 17 notes already waiting for you that you can take or leave at that point, right?
Yeah.
So I get the impression that you get overwhelmed by pre-prepping a campaign too much.
I that's where it sometimes went downhill as well, because I've noticed, especially with just as a player and sometimes as DM, I can riff off if the players do something that has messed up a plan, I can go, okay, no problem. But if because I also know myself, if I plan far too much and then they do something and it goes awry in my plan, I'm like, oh no. So it's this: if I have little planned, I can riff off. If I have too much planned and then they deviate from that, I'm like, oh no, now I am overwhelmed. Now I have to build it up all again. It's I don't know. It's
So simplify, right? Your random encounters will flesh out the world as you zoom into things. And like, let's go through the list again. When we go to, so we've done the kingdom. You want to go to one of your cities as well? We can ask, how big is the city instead of how big is the realm, and what do the borders touch? Is it farmland? Is it wilderness? Whatever, right?
Yeah.
What are the interesting landmarks within the city? Right? We can go through it. How long ago was the city founded? What happened in the last generation? What's a predominant species? Who are the other familiar species? Who's really in control? What's the law enforcement in this? You can use this same list for the city. And then when you get into district, you can still go further. You can still be looking at, like, how difficult is it to leave this district? Is it the poor district? Is it the merchant district? Are you able to travel to the noble district? Right?
Yeah.
How are nobles treated here? How are criminals treated? What's the main conflict in this district, and how do the people react to it? Right? And just using this list and going deeper and deeper, you get into a household, right? You're not asking who the predominant species is, but you are asking who's really in control.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right? And how satisfied are people? So, like, who enforces the rules of the house? Right? These are things that are going to tell you everything that you need to know. Or the inn. Do you have a bouncer, or does the bartender just have a great axe hanging on the wall behind him, right? So
Oh yeah,
so when you get into what is the conflict in this house, right? What is the tension? You can also get into what is the conflict in this room, and the conflict might just like the literal room. Like I walked into the kitchen, and the conflict is it's messy as shit because they don't have a servant. They used to, but they don't, and they're adapting to it. The
yeah,
conflict is that they're newly poor, right, or at least newly not rich, right? So
yeah,
when you get into these, then you start thinking about your exploration tier, your role playing tier, your combat tier, what's going to be available in these areas. When you look at we're going to go into the forest for a while. That forest has boundaries. There's an edge to that forest. So what's in the forest? What are the landmarks? How long has it been the forest like this? Like how old is it? Right? Is there a predominant species of fae or hag, or like who runs the forest, who's in control, right? What's the major
yeah,
conflict within the forest? Are there lots of wolves? Is there lots of birds up in the canopy? It's a thick canopy and it's dark underneath. Like what are the things in here? And if you just look at it room by room, it should make the prepping a lot easier, and you will start to think about why this room exists. What part of the story do I need to tell?
yeah. I see. No, I think so far everything that we have done since since we started the dragons and then the town, the city, it has genuinely helped me prep more,
Good.
and I feel like I'm becoming a more I'm not going to say a better DM, a more prepared DM, because I keep hearing constantly from my friends, no, you're a good DM. Like we enjoy every time you do it,
Yeah.
because when my throat isn't fucked like it is now, I can manipulate my voice a lot. I can do accents. They enjoy the role play with me so much.
Look, prep. My sessions are 6 hours long, so I prep 6 hours. I do a one to
Yeah,
one prep. When I'm working out of a module, I almost prep twice as long because I got to really understand what other people's ideas were that they put down
yeah,
on paper. And I honestly think that most of the modules are poorly written. There are too many empty rooms and bare hallways, right? I'm like, there needs to be something in every room, right, to
yeah,
interact with. And sometimes the room is the hallway. The things to interact with are the doors, right? But there should be a painting on the wall or a wall sconce that doesn't have a candle. Like there's got to be fucking something, right? Otherwise, why are we
yeah.
playing this game of empty rooms? So so I'm sure that you are a great DM. Everybody has their strengths. My weakness is the environmental description when we enter a new place. Because I already picture in
Yeah,
my head, I know what it looks like. We're moving on to the next thing. I have to have
yeah,
notes beside me of either a written out script or common descriptors for me to use in places like this, right? So when it comes to the kingdom, don't describe the kingdom beyond there's a king, there are a bunch of knights, we're gearing up for war, there are a bunch of cities and whatnot. Give them the map. That's what they're interested in. They don't need to know how the citizens feel about the capital punishment laws in this city. Like they don't give a fuck. They
yeah,
will only care when they get into that city and come across that as part of a natural conflict or story. So don't prep it,
yeah.
right?
That's that. Yeah, that's also a weakness. I attempt to over prep, and then I do, and then I prep the wrong thing, and then yeah, it's always. I think
I
my most successful ever encounter was half prepped. I was like, I'm gonna have a Wendigo here because I can, and then that went fucking fantastic.
good. My rule is my general rule of thumb, because I hand draw my battle maps, right?
Yeah,
And my battle maps can be pretty large, or they can be pretty small, or they can be a bunch of interconnected hallways or tunnels or whatever. Doesn't matter. The point is, I have to plan them out ahead of time.
yeah,
And that means that I know my players will eventually go here. Even if they don't get to it in this session, they will go there. I play for 6 hours on the general rule that I can get in one encounter, one proper encounter. Don't just mean combat. One real, like I go to a different room, whether it's zooming out to a city block or zooming into a tavern or zooming into a dungeon room or going into battle, right? Like
yeah,
whatever it is, one room per hour. So I will do 6 rooms in my 6 hour session. Now I will prep 8 because they will go
yeah,
somewhere else, right? But I just look at what are the neighboring rooms, and sometimes it's do I zoom out or zoom in. One time I prepped a room, the entire room was what is inside this chest, because I knew they would spend an hour identifying objects. There was a lot of stuff in this large chest. What is this? Well, this is a clue. There's a letter written to this person. That's a room. That's a whole encounter. I did
Yeah.
more there than I did in the living room. Right.
Yeah.
So I look at it. I honestly approach it room by room by room, and I try to have something like a overworld map or a city map or a district map or my battle maps, or as they explore a house, I'm revealing rooms as well as it goes, right? Like I try to have something physical for the room itself, but it's hard to think outside of a large map. Don't come up with lists like I do of important people. You need to have the list of who is the king, who is the advisor, is he married, who sits on the council. Nothing else matters. Deal with the capital when you get there.
Yeah.
You seem stressed out right now. What's going on?
It's not stress. It's I try to concentrate on. This is the problem with being trying to live life on unmedicated ADHD. Is you're trying to process information, and then you're focusing on processing the information, and then you can't process it. And
yeah.
This will come out. I'll process it eventually when I listen back to it.
Fair.
No, but I gathered the important bits.
Look, it's a lot to take in all at once, and we do go rapid through the questions and shit, right? I know.
No, that once I get the questions in front of me, I'll be like, yeah, I can go on and on and on and on. And
on. Do we have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this episode up?
No, I think we're good.
Anyway, that's all for our discussion on building a kingdom. Thanks again, Andri, for choosing the topic and creating this.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, for supporting the Patreon as well. And thanks for listening to everybody else to this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com, a store with some It's a Mimic merch, and a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
Bye.
Okay, bye. I'll try to give you a warning before I post it this time, because last time you got surprised.
I get surprised every time because I'm just rolling along, and then all of a sudden, it's me. Are you watching House of the Dragon at all?
My God, no. Let me tell you something. No? It is always the second thing on my list of things to watch, and I just wrapped up. What the hell was I watching? I just finished Harley Quinn, the animated show. It is so good.
Okay.
But so I just wrapped that up, and I was like, all right, I'm finally ready to sit down to watch House of the Dragon. Mieka is on my ass about, I want to watch this. I'm like, fine. She and I just finished watching Euphoria. We just got up to date on that as well, right? So we always try to have a show that we're watching and a series to watch as well. Like we finished the James Bond series and the Alien series, like that kind of shit, right? So
yeah.
So there's always a lot of watching. And I just wrapped that up, and Charlie turned to me and said, I think I'm going to start watching Lost again. I'm like, it was just his birthday, so I was talking about it. And he said, I'm going to start watching Lost again. Now, I actually really like Lost, and I'm a big defender of the final season. Come at me in the comments. I'll fucking fight you. I want to do a Lost episode. Anyway, doesn't matter.
I've never seen Lost.
Sure. It is wild. It is not all good, but it is interesting and fun, and I was engaged the whole time. Anyway, my thought for Charlie was, yes, okay, you've tried to watch Lost 3 times. You always fizzle at the end of season 2. And it's just because of his attention span, right? Like, he just needs to then get something light and whatnot, because Lost is one overarching story that slowly unravels the pieces, right? So every question they answer, they ask 2 more for the first few seasons. So it's been very hard for him to like stay engaged with it. He's like, I'm finally going to do it. I said, I'll make you a deal. If you finish Lost, so we can sit down and finally talk about it, I will watch whatever you want to watch. And he came up with, I'm not even gonna get the name right. It's some anime called Jujutsu Kaisen, I think.
Oh, Jujutsu Kaisen, yeah.
Kaisen, there you go. So he's like, so I need you to watch that. So I am currently tonight, I am going to be subscribing to Crunchyroll so I can sit down and watch a bunch of anime.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Anime is not my forte. I don't know what I'm in for. The last anime he recommended was Death Note, and I actually strangely really liked that.
Mm.
And then I haven't watched anything since God Escaflowne in the 90s. Like it has been a fucking while. Oh yeah. That's one of the OG animes. So I don't do a whole lot of that. So I just agreed as I'm like, sure, Charlie, like it's how many seasons? Oh, it's only 2 seasons. Right, okay. So it's gonna be like 20 episodes, 22 minutes each. No. 50 episodes. Fuck. And then Mieka, I am not joking, on Tuesday said, I'm not going to wait for you for House of the Dragon. I want to watch it. I said, sure, you go right ahead. I will catch up. We can talk about it. Last night at midnight, my time, 3 a.m. for her, she calls me and says, I've just finished season 1. It is getting really, really good. You need to watch this. Hurry up. We have to talk about it before I let you my momentum. I'm like, you have 10 episodes. I've got 20, and I've got a 50 episode anime that I've made a bet on, and fuck. And I have everybody breathing down my neck to watch fucking what's the Game of Thrones in space. Why people
what?
that's how it's always described to me. They're screaming at me. What's the fucking, I gotta Google it now because it's gonna drive me nuts.
You're not Dune. Surely you're not talking about Dune.
No, it's a TV series.
Oh, then I'll have
The
fucking no
Expanse.
idea.
The Expanse. They said it does.
Yeah, no.
Apparently it's absolutely fucking great. I want to finish From. I only got it halfway through. Since you wanted to watch that with me, I did finish Scavenger's Reign. Fuck, was that one of the best things ever? I hope it gets picked up for season 2. I think you would like it. It's sci-fi.
Okay.
It's weird. I finished Fallout. I finished, like, I'm up to date on a bunch of shit, but House of the Dragon is the one that I'm not up to date on. I want to finish Dark. I haven't seen the last season of Dark, and it's killing
House of the Dragon is good, but if you've read Fire and Blood, you know what's going to happen anyway.
I have not. Fire and Blood is a...
Oh, really?
Well, I made the decision. See, I like to watch the show and then read the book. Everybody says do it the other way around. But I find if I read the book, then I'm disappointed in the show, right? So
no, I get it.
So when I determined that Game of Thrones is never going to finish, I just said, okay, I'm going to read the books. So I read them. But they just also announced they're doing there's a second spin-off, so a third Game of Thrones series that's going to follow Duncan Egg. And I know a little bit about that from just being on the internet. And so I want to read those books, and I want to read Fire and Blood. And I'm like, I can't fucking do it until I...
Yeah. No, I think a funny thing about Fallout, I did finish it. Problem being, I fell asleep always when I was watching it. Not because it's boring; it's really fun. But I was doing it between shifts, and I just put it on, and then I would fall asleep, and then I'm four episodes deep, and I'm like, oh fuck's sake, I have to go back and watch it again. So I gave up for a little bit, but I like Fallout. But I've read Fire and Blood, and I'm watching the series now. It's good. I mean, there are a few things that they changed, obviously, but that's just the way that it is. Yeah. But they're pretty. It's pretty good so far.
The other one that I'm really excited to watch is the Rings of Power, which I still haven't gotten down to.
Rings of Power was okay.
That's what everybody says. I am curious to see if I can find
it. I think what the problem was is that people had extremely high expectations because the Rings of Power, or because it's based off the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
So the Silmarillion is like a few thousand years.
I've read it twice. It is a fucking textbook.
Yeah, I tried to fucking listen to it, and I couldn't fucking keep up.
No, it's brutal to get through.
Yeah, but then it's, then the first age, or when Sauron rises, it's all compacted into like 8 episodes. So it's incredibly rushed, and I think that's where people are mostly disappointed. It's I wouldn't say it's rushed. I'd say that it was the planning was a bit off. I'd say.
I'm gonna say this. I think that one of the biggest problems the fantasy series have is, and I do mean like overarching series,
Yeah,
something longer than just a movie or two, is pacing.
yeah,
Because there is such an expectation for swords and magic, but you also have to raise the stakes consistently all the way through it. But you're also
mm,
dealing with incredibly high stakes, usually right from the beginning. The apocalypse is coming, the dark omens are, the lich is rising, the city's going to be turned undead, whatever it is, right?
yeah,
So it's very, very difficult to keep a consistency going, especially over seasons where you have some of the cast and crew changing.
yeah.
So your creative
I
team
think,
is different,
yeah,
right?
I mean, Game of Thrones was great when it came to pacing.
Until
I
the
feel
last
like,
season, right?
well, yeah, we don't talk about the last season, do we?
but this,
No, but you agree that Game of Thrones is in the books and in the series, it has good pacing.
but here's the thing about Rings of Power. If it's based on the Silmarillion is a textbook, so it
Yeah,
summarizes the whole thing in what, 20 pages, 30 pages, the whole
yeah,
rise
that's
of
true.
Sauron. What's in there? Everybody ranted and bitched about Peter Jackson adding extra shit into the Hobbit that didn't need to be there, and now we're complaining that the pace is too fast for. I strongly believe audiences don't know what they want
Yeah,
because we are addicted to the tension, the building of suspense before getting the thing. So if it does not live up to that suspense, that tension, we're not happy.
yeah.
This is why every once in a while you hear about like, oh, they should have brought the fans in to talk about this. Fans would have.
Uh,
Yeah, but fans, we want to be teased up into the moment and then have the big
yeah,
payoff. Fans will just hit you with and then this and then this and then this, and it's you're just hitting plot points, right?
yeah. I mean, I being only I was fucking 10 or something when The Hobbit came out. No, I was 9. I was 9 when The Hobbit came out. So I fucking loved The Hobbit and I've read it. I think both is great, the movies and the book. I think it's both fantastic. I love Lord of the Rings. I love a lot of fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But like when it comes to there's one fan base that's the fucking worst, and it's always going to be the Star Wars fan base, which is the worst when it comes to fucking anything.
The Star Wars
Um,
fan base is bad. I think they've taken over for the Star Trek fan base. Like Trekkies were brutal in the 90s.
yeah, I mean it's I feel like it's a mix of the older fans. It's I mean it's everybody. It's a lot of Star Wars fans that are making this the way that it is. But like Star Wars was just 3 movies to begin with, and then it was like, oh, I'll make some more. Why not? And then it was a series, and the series tied in a lot of plot holes, and then it's super funny because the Clone Wars, which is it's not a highly decorated, it's a highly loved show within the Star
Yeah,
Wars community for those who have watched it, and it changed a lot of stuff about the prequels, and now the Acolyte is changing a little things, and everybody's going wild.
I want you to know, and this is before your time. What year were you born?
2002.
Fuck my life. All right, so this is totally a sidebar, little peek behind the curtain for me. The very first fantasy property that I was ever in love with was Star Wars. I was a kid that played outdoors, like the woods and rode bikes, and like I was an
Yeah,
outdoor kid. I did all the
of course.
sports, and when I was inside I was reading, but I was trying to just absorb information through reading. And then Star Wars, my dad sat down. I actually came home from a summer camp, and my dad was watching The Empire Strikes Back with my brother. And I'm like, "What are you watching?" And he goes, "You ever seen this? You ever seen any Star Wars movies?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, well, we're gonna finish this one off, and then you and I'll sit down next weekend and we'll watch the first one and this one again, and then we can all watch the third one together." I'm not kidding. That changed my fucking life. I'd never seen
Yeah,
anything like that up until that
yeah,
point, and I was only vaguely aware that it even existed because it would have been like 1993, which is a dead zone for Star Wars, right? 10 years
yeah.
after Return of the Jedi, but still, what, 8 to 10 years before the prequels hitting, right? Like,
99. So yeah, about yeah, 7-ish years. Yeah.
yeah. So there's this dead zone. I remember wearing Star Wars t-shirts because I was so in love with it, and
Mhm.
and like getting teased at school. That shit would not happen anymore, right? It was
No.
rough being a Star Wars nerd back in the day. But you know what they had? They had what was called the Expanded Universe, which was about 40 fucking novels. I loved the Expanded Universe. I read every one of them. I was there at the bookstore on release days getting the
Yeah.
next one in hardcover. I could not get enough. I collected every one of them. Still have them in a box at my mom's house. There's like,
Yeah.
I'm not joking, 40 of these. I remember when they killed Chewbacca by dropping a moon on him. I remember when
Yeah.
Han and Leia fell in love on the slave planet where Rancors come from. And there were witches in that one. Like I
Yeah.
saw, like there was some wild, wild shit going on. You thought that the Clone Wars was neat, man? They were cloning Jedi masters and shit back in.
Oh, I've read the expanded universe. I was just tying it into canon because everybody knows the expanded universe. Because I think a lot of I'm not gonna say casual Star Wars fans, but like they're into it. They've seen, you know, the shows and the movies.
Yeah.
But like then you get into, you know, people who have read the non-canon stuff. They're like, bro, they did this shit all the fucking time. Like, what are you fucking mad about?
Yeah.
They killed Chewbacca twice, my guy. Like, what are you mad about?
The first one that I read was called Splinters of the Mind's Eye. Darth Vader was not Luke's father. Luke and Leia were not related, and Luke and Leia had like this huge romance as they were being hunted by the Empire in that. They have rewritten Star Wars on me about 3 or 4 times before I finally said enough is enough. When the prequels came along, and it was episode 3 where they said, now all the expanded universe is gone. And I went, are you fucking kidding me? I've invested years of my life into this. I'm out. So I am a hardcore fan of the old classic stuff, and I'm curious to see the stuff that doesn't contradict, like Mandalorian doesn't contradict the expanded universe. Rogue One doesn't contradict it. But Star Wars broke my fucking heart in a big way. And at this point, I'm slowly starting to come to terms with the fact that it is just a comic book now. Here, a limited series run of almost superhero people doing fantastic things. And by the way, we will rewrite it sometime in the next, 8 years. Fine, fuck it. Sure. You retcon all you want. I'm in it for spectacle today.
Have you there are a few Star Wars RPG systems. Have you ever been aware of those?
Oh yeah. I played the video games. I mean, I started on the old TIE Fighter. Like I played the OG video games.
No, sorry. I mean TTRPG systems.
Oh, the TTRPGs.
Yeah, sorry. I forgot that.
Just really quickly, I'll wrap up. I finished off Knights of the Old Republic. That was the last one that I played, and
great game.
It was good. It ate my face for about 3 weeks, and I was also trying to keep my Diablo 2 up and running because I was killing it there. And I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I can't do it anymore, and I just stopped playing video games. However, the TTRPGs I've not played. I saw something recently about people arguing about which time period to play in, right? Do you play the Rebel Alliance? Do you play, the Republic before the Empire? Like, do you play?
There was a TTRPG, or it's not even like a proper one. It's more of just like a skeleton, and you can just change names and just play in any time you want. This was like not an official release. This is just a website that I found ages and ages and ages ago.
Oh, cool.
But then there are, the official ones, which are in periods. But why play in like the Empire era when you can play High Republic or like Old Republic, like where the fun stuff is?
But you see, my problem is I don't have a touchstone for that anymore because I bailed on Star Wars, so I don't like the Old Republic. I would have to learn a whole new mythology, and with the new D&D edition coming out. And I'm flirting with the idea of getting back into comics, but I'm just so everything I see, I'm just so discouraged about.
I think you'd like the Vader comics. The Vader comics are good. I will say that.
If I get to it, I will take a look at it because I've got, I don't know if you can see in my case here, I've got a bunch of old Star Wars comics. So in my Star Wars shrine.
My Star Wars shrine isn't up because this shelf is in disarray right now.
Yeah, but these comics are the old Tales of the Jedi comics from like the late 90s and shit. Like, I say, I'm so old school on it. The new stuff that I want to dig into, I haven't seen Acolyte yet. I still haven't seen.
Excuse me.
Gazoon.
I haven't seen Acolyte either.
I haven't seen Obi-Wan. Everybody kind of made a fart noise at it, but I like.
I liked parts of it. There are some parts that are like whatever, but I think generally it was good.
Yeah, I'm curious to go back and watch it, but if I can be honest, there, like I say, there's so many shows that I'm supposed to catch up on.
Yeah, I
And
mean, absolutely.
I'm about to get married, so the opportunity that I have to check out the nerd things that only I give a shit about, that
Yeah,
one is going to close here, or it's going to narrow anyway
yeah,
a couple of months. So I've got to be really, really
picky.
picky about what I want.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly trying to get Miyake over onto my side of things. So that, oh, you should watch this. Oh, you should watch this. But some of it, like, she's never going to watch Star Trek with me. It's just not going to happen. I barked up.
I tried watching Star Trek, and I don't know. It's maybe because I started Star Wars, and that's a fantasy, not a sci-fi.
Yeah, yeah, and it depends on which Star Trek too, because again, varying qualities depending on where you start.
Yeah, precisely.
So I mean, I'll take my wins where I can get them though, right? Like I got her for
Yeah.
the Alien and Predator series. That was a lot of fun. She had a blast with that. What was the other one that we did? All of the Saw movies. That went pretty well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. How
So,
many? Aren't there like fucking 8 Saw movies or something?
oh, there's 10.
Oh, fucking excuse me. Some of them
Yeah.
probably came out before I was born.
Oh, I think the first one did. For sure, the first one did. This is wild to me because before I was born was like the first Friday the 13th movie, right? But
Yeah.
by the time you were born, they'd wrapped that series. They're only doing reboots now, right? But
Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
growing up and hearing about, Friday the 13th 3, Friday the 13th 4, probably the same way that you heard about Saw 3 and Saw 4 when you were like a kid, right? Like vaguely aware that,
Yeah, I mean,
but
same with some other movies as well. I mean, I think Shrek 1 is older than I am.
God, that is a stab in the heart. Oh, that
I
hurts.
mean, but even still though, like even though I'm this young, I remember because I used to be a dinosaur kid. I fucking loved dinosaurs. I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't? But like I remember watching Jurassic Park when I was 5.
I got to see Jurassic Park in theaters when it first came out, and every once in a while,
Old.
oh, I was 10, right? So,
My guy, that's still 9 years before I'm born.
yep. Oh, I had a crisis. I had a crisis when Jurassic Park turned 30 last year. Uh, no, but I saw that in theaters, and I've seen it in theaters 3 or 4 times since as it hits anniversary re-releases
Yeah,
and shit. That Jurassic Park is one of my all-time favorites. I
absolutely.
just missed re-showing of Jaws in theaters, and that's got to be one of my other favorite movies. I just think
Oh, Jaws is good. Jaws is good.
there's something about it. I just think that if you can sit down and pay attention, Jaws and The Exorcist and the first Alien movie, there's something about them where they've got the pacing just fucking right. But
Yeah,
these days, it feels wrong
yeah.
because
I'd
everything
have
is.
to watch The Exorcist because I've seen the other two, but I've never seen The Exorcist.
The Exorcist is another one of these slow burn movies. Like you got to sit
Yeah,
down and really give it all your attention. But I don't know. I think that these are relics from an old time, from another time. Like they were relics when
of
I was
course.
growing up, right? So,
Yeah, of course. I
um,
mean, the fucking prequels are becoming relics. Like,
I can't. I mean, I can't. I can't. It fucking hurts my soul.
This is my favorite part of this podcast. Is making you guys feel old, especially you, because I around my friends, I feel old because I say I remember like I mean they all I mean I to be fair, Iceland was so far behind. I remember VHSs. Like, and a lot of kids from your side of the pond will not remember VHSs that are my age. But I remember fucking trying to turn that fucking thing and trying to.
Oh yeah, you're working the rewind, trying to get
Yeah.
yeah. I had a collection of I'm going to say 180 VHS movies before DVDs came out, and then I got somewhere like 300 DVDs, and then Blu-ray came out, and I said, "Fuck it."
Did Blu-ray catch on your side of the pond? Blu-ray never really caught on here.
Yeah, yeah. If you wanna watch physical media, you go by the Blu-ray because
Huh.
all of the consoles will play Blu-rays. There was a very brief
But,
period around PlayStation 3-ish, I want to say, where they had it wasn't called Blu-rays, they were called HDVDs, HD DVDs. They were just a different kind of technology that were just a better version of DVDs. Is that what you guys have?
no, I mean my one of the old DVD players we had could play both Blu-ray and just DVDs.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
I'm pretty sure my PS5 can't just play regular DVDs. I've done it so far.
Yeah, but it should also be able to play Blu-rays.
Oh, I mean it. I'm pretty sure it can play anything. Like We were, I'm not going to say we were wealthy, but we were just cusping middle class when I was growing up.
Yeah,
Now of course I'd say they were middle to upper middle class because we've
sure.
just been lucky now.
Yeah,
But like I remember probably stuff that kids my age from Canada and stuff that they won't remember because Iceland has always been far behind. I mean, when when the American army came to Iceland back in the Second War, we were still living in mud houses.
really.
Yeah, we were, and like we had never seen an M&M. American soldiers would throw M&Ms over the fence to girls and stuff. Like that's how far behind Iceland was.
That's wild.
Yeah, I blame that. I blame Denmark, fuckers, fucking Danes,
Sorry,
because we were that.
my landlord's been vacuuming over my head for the last like 10 minutes. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is on the floor that you needed to vacuum for 10 minutes directly above my head?
Yeah, because Iceland was a dominion or a colony, but we were the, yeah, whatever, they'll be fine colony and dominion. So that's why the hatred, I say with quotation marks, because I don't really fucking care anymore. But it's always that, you fuckers.
I feel that way about some parts of Canada as well. See, in Vancouver, Vancouver and Toronto are the most modern cities. I guess Montreal. Everywhere else, like you go to the other major cities, and they're still in 2010, and you go to small cities in Canada, and it's still 1981. Like
Yeah.
I recently was at my uncle's wake, and it was the first time that I'd seen most of my family in like 22 years, I think. And we were catching up and stuff, and it came up like that I go out for sushi somewhat frequently, and they all like wrinkled their noses at it, like, sushi, that's disgusting. That's just raw fish. And I'm like, you need to catch up. You are so fun. You sound like my mother, and you are 32. So it's funny, like just where you come from and the different things you have access to.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed whenever you see. I got to get going here because I've got that.
Yeah, of course.
But it's funny when you see there are some parts of like the Middle East and Northern Africa where they are just now getting like music from the early 2000s, and it seems to be music, movies, and vehicles that are all 20 years old, which it's like they're a generation behind. So
that's crazy. It's crazy how dystopian our world really is.
As I get older, it's I don't want to say disheartening, but that's clearly part of it. It is depressing, I guess. Like it's so much deeper than that. Just how bad things are in other places. Like you grow up in Vancouver, in Canada, right? And you hear, oh, other people don't have it as good as you. You should be grateful, but you don't know. You don't know until you're an adult.
Yeah.
And I feel like since 2016 or so, we started to see more and more places, and even places that aren't that far away, like Flint, Michigan, not having clean water, right? That's
precisely.
That's in the States. I've driven through parts of the States that look like bombed out, war-torn areas because they're just abandoned cities, right? The economy took a dive and people moved out. And I was at ghost towns across it. It's fucking insane. And yet we have more people than ever.
Yep. It's crazy.
I feel like the simulation is starting to glitch. Anyway, I guess we should wrap this episode up, hey?
Be smart, huh? What was that? Like an hour fucking detour almost?
Yeah. So there's a bonus ramble for everybody listening.
I absolutely will insert myself into anything I fucking choose to.